What's going on, everybody? Welcome in to the Daily Dime, fresh off of a big NFL day. Zach, sometimes we have mornings where we can sit in front of the laptop and find some props ahead of time. This was one of those mornings where, like, every time I thought I had a minute to do so, nope, something else came up. So I'm flying blind, but I know you have a bunch of plays that you like, so we'll be able to jump right into some NBA stuff today.
Yeah, luckily I did a little bit of I guess we'll call it a shallow dive last night, building some placeholders on the DFS side of things. And what stood out to me last night is still standing out to us here this morning. There's 10 teams that we're waiting on injury reports for on the second end of a back-to-back here. We've got some other news that has broken this morning. Your boy, Joel Embiid, looks like he's going to be out again tonight. An illness this time, right, though? So, if the guys come down with a little bit of a cold or whatever, I won't knock them too much for that, but that limits the availability of some of these props. So even though we do have some that I want to talk to that I really like, this is just another one of those NBA slates where as they start to populate throughout the day on Underdog, on Prize Picks, and those types of sites, we will put the additional picks that we like into the Pick'em Games channel of the Discord here at FTN Fantasy. So, if you're not signed up yet, that's just another little nudge towards, right, you can get all of these picks. And speaking of all of these picks, you said we had a big NFL weekend. You did. I sat there talking about, I'll get to these picks, when I get home from whatever I was doing Saturday night or whenever you posted those. I'll let you shine here. Talk about what you did on the NFL side.
Yeah, this was fun. This was a really fun Sunday. We had 8 main picks, and let me scroll and find all 8 hit. So that's the way to do it. Turns out, if you just don't get picks wrong, you make a lot of money.
Yeah.
So we should do that more often. You can see coming down. Like I didn't go 100%. We had some the day before that failed, but that brings us to more winners. And then way down here, you can see this is the last time that we came into a show kind of flying blind, and we ended up hitting this big giant 47x hit on Fox. So we've been a little bit hot on these shows lately, and hopefully we can continue that starting with tonight's NFL and NBA games.
Yeah, and there's an NFL stream later on today as well, right, where you guys are going to have more NFL specific picks. I know Mondays and Thursdays you guys have been running that show.
Yeah, and I think it's actually cool that you brought up the fact that, like, you saw the picks, you didn't tail them right away, end up kind of really bumming about that.
Slacking.
Sure, slacking. I can also say, like, one of my good friends always tries to tail me on these, and he got them in late and got Kayshon Boutte at 33.5 yards instead of the 29.5 that we gave out early in the week. So he went 7 of 8 instead of 8 for 8. Like, it sucks, right? Like, we all have lives, and you can't get to every single pick at the exact time they come out, but it really does matter. And it feels like it shouldn't matter, and most of the time it doesn't, but man, when it does, it is so incredibly impactful. So truly, the best thing that you can do for yourself, subscribe to FTN, make sure you're in that Discord channel, and you're getting all of these picks right as we announce them and send them out to people. All of these picks, by the way, I think one of my favorite things, all 8 of these were not from projections. I think this is a huge, huge point to make. None of these picks were based on projections. They were based on the analysis that we did in Stats Hub on the Wednesday free show, by the way, main slate matchups. That will come back again this Wednesday after this big giant debut. Every single one came from analyzing the matchup in a way that the sports books, that Underdog, that Prize Picks don't. So if you want a sustainable edge, one that's going to last and last and last, whether you are tailing our picks or using Stats Hub and all of our charting data, which we're going to have for NBA soon as well, to create that edge yourself, the only way to do it is here with us at FTN. So really, really fun weekend, and let's just build on that today.
Yeah, that main slate matchup show, man. I know that's kind of new over the last week or so, but I think going to continue going strong here. So that's now it's a must tune in for me on Wednesday here, and make sure I get those picks in on time. Look,
how about this timing, by the way, Zach?
Yes.
Look at this. 2 minutes ago, these were not here. So we're going to have some stocks to look through. But before we even get to these stocks, I know you have a bunch of points props that you like. So why don't you start us there?
Yeah, again, since we had kind of the relatively thin menu earlier this morning here, I was looking at some of these points props. And right, if you're tuning into the Daily Dime on a even semi-frequent basis, you know that Alex and I don't always agree with what the FTN fantasy model spits out here in the morning. Sometimes it's we want to edit some minutes or rates, or we just maybe from the noggin model, right, clashes with what the FTN fantasy projections are spitting out, but not so this morning. I think I'm finding myself kind of falling in line, or rather being in lockstep with some of these picks that you'll find on the top end of the Prize Picks fantasy tool here. And again, you can use the Prize Picks tool for underdog lines. And if the lines are different, we have that user little cell there. You can put the user projection in, change the projection, and see how that affects your entry. I want to start in Sacramento. So we'll talk a little bit about the DFS slates before we sign off here today. This game not on DraftKings, but you can find it on FanDuel. And of course, you can find all of the games on Underdog and Prize Picks. So I'm going to De'Aaron Fox, and his points line is set at 32.5 here this morning. Like, yes, that is lofty, but still no DeMar DeRozan, still no Malik Monk, and Domantas Sabonis is listed as doubtful, so not expecting him to play. And we're expecting, of course, now it's up to 33 over the last 30 minutes. I still think we should like this higher than selection here and maybe take a look at, I see you hovering, let's see what we can do laddering this up. Like, I don't even hate that 39.5. I know that came in for us late last week with the 47X entry that we hit here. But even that 34.5 for 1.11X, right? With those three guys out, three high usage options in this Kings rotation, De'Aaron Fox over the last two games, 65 shot attempts. And one of those was in overtime, but still, man, we're averaging 32.5 shot attempts here for De'Aaron Fox over the last two games. And the game environment is certainly not pointing us away from the higher thans here. 4.5 point home favorites are the Kings with the Atlanta Hawks in town. 236 implied total here. So if the Kings are going to win this game, which Vegas, again, 4.5 point home favorites here with a very healthy implied total, De'Aaron Fox is the one leading the way. And yes, I will take, again, I think you can still get this at 32.5 on Prize Picks, but even at 33, even at 34.5, I think we should feel fairly comfortable taking the higher than selection here because, yes, I will take 32, even 30 shot attempts from De'Aaron Fox, especially with the way he's getting to the line. I believe 19 free throw attempts last time out. Give me the De'Aaron Fox overs here tonight against the Hawks.
He's been unbelievable. And I think to get a sense of how much value we were getting on Saturday, was it Saturday? It might have been Friday when we hit that.
I think it was Friday,
Friday when we hit that 47X on Fox. For over 39.5, we were getting 7X multiplier. For 4.5 threes, we got 7.7X multiplier. Like, very clear that we were onto something way, way, way ahead of Underdog and ahead of these other sites on that night. It's a damn shame that it's down to 1.75X. So I think I'm with you in that we probably just want the 1.11X at 34.5. Is that your favorite one here?
Yeah, that's what I would take there. Get the little boost for our entry here this morning with the 1.11X. Again, I would probably play this up to like 35.5 just based on what Fox has been doing. It's not like this is outside of the realm of what we thought would happen with these three guys out of the lineup. And so, right, Fox helps us out with the 47X on Friday. I wasn't around on Saturday in the chat, but I'm sitting at this college game. Some of the teams I used to coach were squaring off. I'm hand building lineups on DraftKings. De'Aaron Fox was my main piece. Takes me to a 10X night in those 20 max GPPs. So trying to continue to ride the Fox wave here to start us off on the dime for our Monday morning.
Yeah, and actually that's a great point because we already mentioned like all the Underdog success. We also had an NFL subscriber hit for $20,000. Was really, really sweating that big giant $100 single entry for the 100K up top. So man, it's been a blast in the NBA DFS Discord, the NFL Discord, and of course the Pick'em Discord as well. Where are you going next after Fox?
Yeah, so jumping back to actually, I guess I could highlight this just from the same game. Maybe we'll talk about this in a few minutes. The Dyson Daniels, we'll see if he's got stocks props up. But sticking with the points here, and I'll pick up the pace here on these two. See, okay, we've got 3.5. So 2.5 steals. Let's just stay in this game, actually. Let's go Dyson Daniels, because I wanted to talk about the 2.5 steals. This was on Prize Picks already this morning, and now we've got it on Underdog. I'm not opposed to that stocks for the 1.11x either. Maybe that's where we go, but specifically on the steals, right? This morning, the model has Dyson Daniels for 3.91 steals here tonight on the other side of this Sacramento Atlanta game. And like, you're thinking about that, like, what the heck? Like, this is not Victor Wembanyama out here. Like, so what are we doing? Well, Dyson Daniels is leading the league with 3.7 steals per game. And he's over this number in 7 of his 12 appearances. But if you take out the appearances where he played less than 25 minutes, there's this huge gap where 3 of these 12 appearances, he played 25 minutes or less. The rest of these games, he's played 34 minutes or more. So in those 9 games, he's over the number in 7 of 9, and he's played 35 or more minutes in 6 straight games. So again, we talked about the fantasy environment here, the implied total, the close spread. I think Dyson Daniels, again, in lockstep with the model here this morning, this 2.5 steals makes a lot of sense to me. But you can get that little boost. You can maybe get, if Dyson Daniels picks up a block or two, that'll just aid you in getting over that number. I think the 2.5 steals is very, very safe here. And then obviously you're getting a little boost if we go to the stocks. How do you feel about that? Because I know I'm stepping into your stocks arena here.
He's averaging 3.8 steals, 4.6 stocks per game. These numbers are just too low. One thing I will note about the matchup is Sacramento is allowing this. They're 17th in steals allowed. They're actually number 1 in blocks allowed per game, meaning they don't allow a lot of blocks. So I do think I feel stronger about the steals, but I also know that we're not getting 1.1x for the steals. So I'm honestly completely good with either. I think I still lean the stocks for 2 reasons. The first being, as we've talked about before, like, you never know what you're going to get from a scorekeeper, right? He could swipe a ball away from a guy, and instead of they call it a steal, they call it a block and a rebound. We don't know how guys are going to score it. So in that regard, the stocks are a little bit safer. And then the other thing is he's been hitting this steals number by so much. He has a game with 5. He has a game with 4, 7, 6, and another one with 6 that if he's going to hit regardless, like, you might as well just go to the stocks there at one more number. So if he was consistently at 3 or 4 steals and it felt like he could easily fall below the stocks number on just steals alone, I'd be a little bit more inclined to just stay at the 2.5 steals. But I think I'd rather just get the 1.1x with his 3.5 stocks.
Yeah, that's what I've got clicked in here now as well. So let's look at that stocks board again before we go back to these points picks that I want to talk about. Because, these can move very quickly as well. Yeah. So I don't want to maybe miss anything that we'd really love here.
Fox stocks are honestly interesting too. If we felt like the points have come up too high. Let's see what else we have. SAR at 2.5 stocks is kind of nice, although the Knicks obviously aren't the best matchup.
Right.
Miles Turner against Toronto looks really strong as well. Let me see how Turner has done, because Toronto's one of the better center matchups. Mm-hmm. His stocks are down a little bit this year, only 2.7 per game, but I do still think that's probably pretty solid. Where was he last year? I feel like 2.7 is low for Miles Turner, right?
We've got 2.96
last year. Yeah,
2.96 is his projection right now.
So I take that back. I'm not a huge fan of that one. Let's see.
I'm kind of worried about the minutes there.
Yeah,
Zubac. Projection doesn't love it.
Yeah, it's not a great matchup. I think Star is probably the one I feel best about here, but I don't feel great about any of these other than Daniels. Actually, I think Fox might be my second favorite one.
For what it's worth on SAR, we've got him projected for 3.52 stocks. And again,
he's averaging 3.1.
Yeah,
in
we've been
fewer minutes.
attacking. I know Dream
Yeah.
has been hitting the blocks
Mhm.
almost every night, but I do like your 1.13x for higher than 2.5 feels pretty good just based off, his short track record here in
Yeah.
the early parts of his rookie season and what the model is picking up on with that data, even in the matchup against the Knicks. And of course, we're probably going to see Karl Anthony Towns questionable here when that injury report. I think they're on the list of teams. Yeah, on the second end of the back-to-back here. So we don't know quite yet. And it's a matchup against Washington at home, 14-point home favorites. I think Cat probably does play here. I don't think that really affects how much I want to get to this SAR prop because we know he's going to get out there for mid to high 20s in minutes. We've got him projected for 26 right now. And this is, again, in the tool, a really healthy higher
Mhm.
than pick. And we're getting the extra multiplier.
Yeah, this is a bit of a tough one.
And we don't have to force it, right? If we just want to find a 3 pick here this morning, I feel pretty darn good about these other 2 points props that I want to talk about. Maybe we can just find
Yeah.
our favorite one together of the 2 that I bring up to finish out a 3 pick here.
Yeah, I think that's the better idea right now because the Knicks have allowed the fewest steals per game, and if we go to SAR's blocks, I think 1.5 blocks is good. Knicks are pretty much middle of the pack in the amount of blocks that they allow per game. However, I will like this a lot more if Towns is out because Towns tends to pull centers away from the inside. I want them on the inside, not having to worry about giving up threes all game long. So if Towns is out, I'm going to revisit this and I maybe will feel great about it. But for now, it's like it's on the edge where I like it. I lean over on these stocks and the blocks for him, but I don't love either. So I'm comfortable just passing and going to your favorite points props.
Okay, so I want to talk about the other side of that game actually in Jalen Brunson, right? Because we should have a questionable Karl Anthony Towns here. And Deuce McBride, I think, could potentially miss here on the second end of the back-to-back. We'll see. But why I like this Jalen Brunson over 27.5 points so much is because even with those guys projected in here this morning, the model absolutely loves this matchup. It's got him projected for a hair over 32.5 real points here tonight, which I think may be running a little bit hot. He's getting 39 minutes in the model right now, but even if you take that minutes projection down, right? Let's go to 36 or 37, a little bit more modest for a Tibbs rotation here, who Tibbs like 3 games ago, Alex, he ran 6 guys. Like I love Tibbs, but like somebody has to stop this, man. It's November, buddy. But so like, right, you take him down a couple minutes in the projection, he's still going to have a number that is far enough over this 27.5 point line. And so like the model likes it this much with Cat and Deuce projected in. If those guys come out, I think this line goes up to 29, maybe even 30.5 for Brunson in this matchup against Washington, who I imagine when we get the Wizards injury report, Malcolm Brogdon is probably taking a seat again after he made his debut on Sunday. So I like this Brunson prop, but the other one that I was taking a look at, Alex, is in that Toronto and Indiana game, which I think looks like a great fantasy environment for our DFS lineups, and I think we can attack it here with Grady Dick as well. His points prop is set at 18.5, and he's just averaging 19 on the season. So on the surface, that doesn't look like it's too advantageous, but in the 11 games without Emmanuel Quickly, we know IQ is going to remain out here for at least another couple of games. Dick averaging 16.1 shot attempts per game and 20.1 points per game. And again, this is a 233.5 implied total. The Raptors are only 4.5 point home dogs here to the Pacers. So we know that this one's going to get up and down. We know there's going to be a lot of points scored. Model has them for a hair over 21 points here tonight. I mentioned on the FTN Fast Break podcast late last week that we should pay a little bit more attention to what Grady Dick is doing here this year. Because I think he's been like quietly improving, right, in multiple areas. And some of this is just the massive raw minutes load that Grady Dick is taking on here. But that's not going away tonight. And so I like attacking this one. I don't know which one I like more, really. So if you have a lean between Brunson or Grady Dick, I can defer to you, but I know that both of those picks are going to be cycled through all of my 3-pick entries here this morning.
I think I like the dick pick, no pun intended.
Nice.
More here. Yeah, how about that one? If for no other reason, then I'm a little bit worried about blowout with Brunson.
Sure, yeah,
14
we mentioned like,
yeah, we mentioned that part of that is the 39 projected minutes. Well, those 39 minutes can pretty easily become 33, 34, 32 if the Knicks are up too much. So yeah, I do have that concern, and I think that's kind of like the only way that I see Brunson failing, but it's enough to make me like a dick a little bit more here. So why don't we do that? Why don't we make this the official 3-pick play of the Daily Dime? De'Aaron Fox over 34.5 points, 1.11x. By the way, I think that I don't know this for sure, but I think I will also probably run Fox with stocks as well in some of my 3-pick plays tonight. Dyson Daniels over 3.5 stocks, also 1.11x, and then Grady Dick over 18.5 points. That gives us 7.4x instead of the baseline 6x because we are going with those 1.11x multipliers. So I really like this. And then why don't we hop over and take a look at the first run of ownership projections and the GPP scores. By the way, I wanted to point out when our subscriber Chris hit for the $20,000 yesterday in NFL, his first comment was the GPP scores are a cheat code. So we've been seeing the same in NBA as well, but it's worth noting like they make DFS so much simpler, so much easier, whether you are someone that you like, whether you consider yourself an expert DFS player or a novice DFS player, anything in between, these GPP scores just help lineup building so much. So worth checking them out if you haven't already. And we can take a look now at the top of the GPP scoreboard so far today.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I would say as somebody that would consider themselves an NBA DFS expert, right, been playing every single day for over a decade now, like the GPP scores for my process have really helped when I get down to, okay, I've got a decision point between maybe a LaMelo Ball and a Cade Cunningham, or a Jalen Brunson and a Donovan Mitchell, like guys that would be in a similar price range that, you know, project really well, but then using that GPP score kind of as the tiebreaker, as that guiding light on which decision point I'm going to go with, right? Like if you're doing that, you're landing on Cade Cunningham when he puts up multiple triple doubles in a week, right? You're landing on guys like today, right, where it looks like Karl-Anthony Towns, Jalen Brunson especially, right? If Towns gets ruled out, of course, that Brunson ownership number at 9% will come up, but the model liking both of those guys, right? Because I was looking at Jalen Brunson's like minutes, right? When you're talking about having that little bit of concern for a potential blowout, you're definitely proven right. Just game log watching here, 4 times this season, the Knicks have been involved in games with 20-point or greater margins of victory, or one loss in there, the 23-point loss on opening night to the Celtics. Those are the only 4 games that Jalen Brunson has dropped below 34 minutes in a game this year. So you're right on there with your read. I think Jared McCain, that ownership number is going to be probably double that. Again, there's a lot of news to come with those 10 injury reports that we're waiting on, but we know Joel Embiid is doubtful, and we know that Jared McCain has been just off the charts over the last 5 games. This rookie, man, like I told Adam Pfeiffer on Thursday, right? Turns out that you can paint your nails and still be pretty damn good at basketball. 26 points, 4 assists, 2 rebounds per game, shooting 48, 44, 100 in terms of his splits in 32.2 minutes per game. 131 points in his last 161 minutes. Jared McCain is going to be chalk. I think it's going to be good chalk tonight, even in a matchup that's, I think, a 213.5 implied total against the Miami Heat. Jared McCain, the shot volume is going to be there, sub 6K on DraftKings. I think that's going to be good chalk that I'm eating, so to speak, by the time we get to lock.
Yeah, obviously we still have Embiid in this first run of projections. So ownership's going to change. Projections are going to change. Great call out there. And I'll also say, as far as McCain goes, anyone who was criticizing the draft pick because he paints his nails instead of talking about what he does as a basketball player, you have to turn in your I know ball card. You just did. That's the rule. So he has been so much fun to watch. I'm equally excited to have him on the team and playing this big of a role as I am disappointed that Embiid just can't get on the damn floor, man. So this is it's been a really frustrating start to the season, but what an incredible bright spot as a Sixers fan to have Jared McCain showing that he's not just NBA ready already, but he is NBA playoff ready, it seems. So as long as the Sixers can actually get themselves into the playoffs, hopefully we can enjoy that at the end of the year.
Yeah, and then I mentioned earlier when we were talking about the props, the how much of a fan I am of Indy and Toronto here tonight from a fantasy perspective, and I think that's going to apply to both sites. A guy like Ben Mathurin, really on both sites, had a bit of a down game 2 games ago, but he's surrounding that. Like just on DraftKings, his last 5 games, DK points, 37, 56, 40, 13.5, and 44.5. So Mathurin in this starting role now, again, in a great matchup against Toronto, guard forward eligible too. He looks like somebody that I could have some shares of tonight. Really, again, that entire game, like, you get to that Pacers starting 5, I'm not complaining. We also had Ben Shepherd exit Sunday's game with an oblique strain. So if Shepherd is out, maybe TJ McConnell at 4,100 becomes a value play we're sprinkling into our MME builds here tonight. Certainly not going to hurt the minutes floor for a guy like Jarris Walker, who has carved out a role in this rotation here in his second season. We talked a little bit about Grady Dick on the other side. RJ Barrett and Jakob Poeltl are fine on DraftKings. On FanDuel, RJ Barrett 7,800. That is a building block here on this slate for me. Thinking about some other options, again, it's tough to dive in too deep on some of these games like New York and Washington, like Houston and Milwaukee. Like maybe we see Amin Thompson, who was questionable with, I think, general soreness, right? That's old Jimmy Butler's nickname for a while there. So Houston has a great matchup against the Bucks in Milwaukee tonight. So even if they dropped one of those top 7 guys out tonight with rest, that's going to create a ripple effect. A guy like Jabari Smith is sub 5K now. I hate clicking Jabari Smith Jr. into my lineups, but when he's sub 5K, you got to at least take a second look. Of course, Orlando and Phoenix, both of those teams still shorthanded. That's the nightcap on DraftKings main slate. Of course, 2 extra games, those 2 10 p.m. Eastern starts there on FanDuel, where you can find a $9,500 De'Aaron Fox. It's too cheap. If he's going to shoot 30-plus times a game, we have to continue to attack that. And then, of course, on FanDuel, you also have the other side, the front court that's shorthanded. Trey Lyles is still 4,500 there. You could certainly see Alex Len start instead of Trey Lyles in this one, given that you've got Clint Capella in the starting 5 on the other side. So, again, 2, very different slates is the most accurate way I can put it, but having those 2 games tacked onto the FanDuel slate is huge because you've also got Steph Curry questionable. So even if you're playing on the late slate on DraftKings, that's a little bit of a lesser advantage that you could potentially have because everybody playing that 2-gamer is going to be tuned into the news. But on FanDuel, questionable Steph Curry, if he sits here tonight against the Clippers, you have late swap opportunities galore. So I hate to say it, I hope Shazam's not tuned in because I know he's Mr. FanDuel. FanDuel, to me, is just doing a much better job with their NBA DFS product this year because there is absolutely no reason on an 8-game slate to kick these 2 games off the DraftKings slate. So I'm just continuing to complain about that here on the Daily Dime.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the sentiment for anybody who isn't just willing, but actually enjoys like waiting around for that news, trying to find extra ways to gain an advantage over the field. So I definitely agree with you there. Navari chiming in saying people criticize the way Dennis Rodman dressed. You also saw them do the same with Allen Iverson. So Jared McCain just following in those footsteps in a very different way. Also a fun young guy to watch. Tim asking here, struggling with underdog and prize picks. How can we help him do a little better? Zach, anything jump out to you here?
Well, if you're coming by the Daily Dime here, Tim, we're going to pat ourselves on the back here just for a second because, if you tailed these picks this weekend, as I didn't, I made that mistake, right? Alex cleaned up with the 8 for 8 on NFL. But I think also it's not just us sitting here feeding you the picks. It's tuning in when you can or watching on replay Monday through Friday here and maybe Alex, you can direct him to any of the stuff that you have written up or recorded in video form in terms of when you're looking across the spectrum of these sites, Underdog, Prize Picks, right? There's Boom, there's Sleeper, there's a number of others, right? You need to be thinking about the mathematical side of these entries and how you can maximize your potential return. And I know, Alex, you've done that. So maybe talk a little bit about why we target these 3 and 6 pick plays on Underdog.
Yeah. Let me find the exact numbers here real quick. The first thing to note is that the required win percentage. So actually, the very first thing I'll say is if you have been correct on 30% of the picks, to some degree, you've just been really unlucky, right? If you were flipping a coin on all of the even ones, you'd expect to be at 50%. So to be at 30% means you've been unlucky. Maybe there are holes in your process that you can improve, but to some degree, you've just been unlucky and things are going to get better in time for you. But the second thing, always make sure that you are playing the best way. And so here are some numbers. Like if you are on Prize Picks and you are doing a 3-pick play, you need to hit 58.5% of the time to break even. On Underdog, the 3-pick play, because it pays out at 6x instead of 5x, you only have to hit 55% of the time. So understanding those meaningful differences, understanding that on 6-pick plays, it's 54.2% over on Prize Picks and 53.8% on Underdog. Understanding that sort of thing will really help you in the long run. And then in the short term, as Zac said, you can just kind of tail us a little bit. We tracked every single pick we made on this show and in the Discord last year for NBA. We hit 61% of those picks. We're going to win in the long run for sure. And this year, we haven't tracked it as closely, but I'm pretty sure we're above that, even using some of these, boosts, trying to get to 1.1x, things like that. I know in NFL, personally, I'm at between 63 and 64%. I need to update for yesterday. So actually it's probably going to go up to like 65, 66. But yeah, you can follow us, and you can follow us in 2 different ways. Number one, just tailing those picks, but also just kind of understanding what are we looking for. And now you can go and make the same kind of analysis and make picks in the same way. Especially yesterday, I didn't make any NBA picks, but if you wanted to make an NBA pick for those later games, you could have said, all right, I know what Alex points to every time he talks about stocks, so I'm going to go do my own stocks research and see if I can come up with a 3-pick play for stocks, things of that nature. Navari saying he lost down on about $1,000 because he laddered Booty instead of just doing the research on his production a little bit more. Honestly, I don't think the ladder was wrong on him. We were closer to doing some ladders on Jamison Williams, and maybe we probably should have. He ended up with 120 yards, so he would have hit every single step of that ladder, no problem. But I mean, honestly, a big part of this is just understanding that there's a lot of variance, and those $10,000 days don't come often. But if you're consistent, they will come, and part of that is knowing when we are doing 6-pick plays, when we're doing 3-pick plays, the expectation on any single one that we're doing, no matter how confident in the picks we are, is that it's going to lose. And it's just, we're going to eventually hit enough to be really profitable in the long run. So that's the last thing I'll bring up on that one. And then one final thing here before we jump off, I wanted to note in the GPP scores, when we update the projections, when we update ownership, I think this Indiana and Toronto game is a really good chance of staying. It just has cover and protection to stay low owned because so much value is opening up elsewhere. That, look at this, Pirtle, Mathurin, Siakam, Boucher, Barrett, all at the top of the GPP scores. I think they're all going to stay at the top of the GPP scores. You could conceivably build a lineup of just Indiana and Toronto plus Philly or plus some of this other value that will open up injury related and make a really, really high probability lineup that has a lot of contrarian upside. So I'm excited for tonight's NBA slate. Maybe more than I have in quite a while, because I've just been enjoying these pick'em games so damn much that I haven't played as much NBA DFS as I have in the past. But tonight is definitely going to be one of those where I jump back into those streets.
Yeah, so we had the 12:30 injury report hit just a few minutes ago. Deuce McBride is out, so that helps our Brunson pick. Karl-Anthony Towns is off the injury report, so he will play tonight. So, again, I still feel pretty confident in that Brunson pick. We saw Deuce take a seat. I believe that was on Friday's game against the Nets. He got 34 minutes out of Brunson. 19 minutes out of campaign. Towns also missed that game, so he had a little bit of an odd rotation there with Ariel Huckporty playing 30 minutes. So we will, of course, again, as this news continues to roll in, the projections will get updated. We will have further discussion in the Discord, the Pick'em Games channel, NBA DFS channel for the DFS players, and a general basketball note that we're going to expand on here on today's episode of the FTN Fast Break podcast. For you Celtics fans out there, Kristaps Porzingis will practice with the main Celtics today. That seems to be a little bit ahead of schedule to me. If he's getting in practices with the G League team, maybe he's back even before Christmas time, and that is not a good sign for the rest of the league, certainly the rest of the Eastern Conference. That's a good sign for those in the best ball streets back in August and September, early October, who took the shot on Kristaps Porzingis where he was being drafted. I thought it was a little bit rich. It still may play out that way, but if you have those KP shares, you're feeling good about that update.
Yeah, Navari, Tim, we appreciate you guys joining us live here in the YouTube chat. Anybody watching on Twitter, you can jump on the YouTube chat any day, participate live as we go. You can ask us questions about individual props, about some effects of injuries, and you can ask some general strategy questions as Tim did. So appreciate you guys jumping in. Hit the like button on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. We will be back tomorrow. But before that, we'll be back at 5:30 Eastern today for free, talking through tonight's NFL games as well. That's with Two Gun and the great Prop God. So we will see you then. Thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.